Omid and Kojo Show.
I'm a wordsmith, mate. I'm like a modern day Tupac Shakur.
True genius.
Right.
Hello, welcome to the Omid and Kojo Show. I'm Kojo and he's Omid.
Omid right here.
He's Omid. Oh, someone says, show us a flip. Go on, show us a flip, Omid.
No, man. I'll flip you off. It's the
There
best
we go.
you're getting.
There's that one. There's that one nipped right in the bud.
We got Jack Farmer Brown.
Oh,
Part of
legend.
the chat.
The naked tricker. World number one naked tricker.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
We've got people talking about my facial hair again.
Oh yeah. I bet when you were younger, think of yourself. All right, let's think about 12-year-old Omid. Okay. What would you say as 12-year-old Omid if you were to go back in time and tell him, like, one day people will be asking you to regrow a mustache and telling you how much they loved your mustache for years on end? What would you think?
He would love it because the whole reason,
thousands of people interested.
Yeah, but when you're a kid, you don't get it. Like, the reason I grew the mustache is because when I was a kid, I promised myself that whenever I had the ability to grow a curly mustache, I would. And then I remembered that when it was growing out anyway, and it was getting a bit wispy because I just started the tour. Because it was the first time I went to America for the tour, and I was like, fuck it, and just leave it. And then it kept going and kept going, and it was a big joke. And then, yeah.
Well, all right. Why did you think the mustache impacted so many lives? Because it clearly had an effect. I don't think, like, is there a day that goes by where no one mentions the mustache? Is there a single day ever?
Not a single day, no. Like,
see, that's impact.
See, that's weird, you know.
I've never had facial hair like that, that has that kind of an effect on people.
Yeah, well, I think it's just because it's such a ridiculous thing to do with your face that people are going to comment on it. Like, I feel like a lot of people, because for me, it's a comedy thing. Like, it's a comedy thing. And I do think it is kind of cool, but it's not a normal thing to do.
But
so
lots of people have silly mustaches.
Huh?
But lots of people have had silly mustaches, I feel like. Or
Yeah,
maybe not.
There's not
maybe
many
not
people that are Omid. And also not...
Yeah.
No one in the... I don't know, like, no one did it, like, and just left it and just let it grow, and it just kept going.
All right.
Like, not no one ever, obviously.
I guess we're getting a lot of tricking related comments for some reason when all we're talking about is mustaches. And here we go, someone saying, "Look, I appreciate your magnificent, shiny, bald-headedness. So shiny." Like, I don't know. But yo, the last time. Okay. So last time, what was it that guy called me?
An egg.
Yeah, okay, so someone said that I looked like a fucking egg, and I had a look on his Instagram afterwards. The guy had a picture of him with an anime girl edited in, and the caption was, "Me and my girlfriend." And that was the person giving me shit. So, like, that, I'm not joking. That's genuinely, and his Instagram was just filled with him, with anime people edited in, and he had, like, 10 followers maybe. And it's like,
what's weird? Yeah, I find it really strange that. Well, I guess it's because you've changed. Because, like, for me, like,
what do you mean?
I invite, like, if you've got a ridiculous curly mustache, you kind of invite in people to pass judgment and comment on it. Like, although in the same breath, I do kind of think it's like, if I want to look that way, then I shouldn't be hassled about it every day of my life for the next 5 years.
You know, like, if you have loads of piercings or tattoos, and it's like people are going to mention it.
No, I know. But, like, for you, all you did was cut your hair.
Well, I didn't. All I did is had male pattern baldness by no fault of my own. But the thing is,
yeah, but, like,
this guy.
I don't know why people bring it up.
But this was my point. this KC Cree guy, I bet if I looked on his Instagram, he'd be like total cringe lord virgin. And, you know, because I just feel like, I feel like those are the people that lash out. Those are the people that lash out. Like someone who's, you know, who's like a normal person, has friends, like has skills that they practice, enjoying life. They don't say those things, you know? So it's true though, isn't it? Like if I look, it's gonna be hilarious. I'll look after. All right. As a follow-on for next episode, after this live, I'll look at his Instagram after. Bet it's hilarious. Well,
I don't know. But this instance, I'm looking at this comment now, and I feel like, because it looks to me like it's one of those ones where he's trying to build a connection and also be nice, but in a somewhat comical way. I feel like he's trying to be your mate.
No,
I don't
I
think
don't know.
he's doing it as a slight.
Well, he just responded. He said, "I'm honestly complimenting you though by saying what was it? Oh, he did say he appreciates
it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. It's like saying you appreciate someone's belly or something if they're fat. I don't know. but I don't know if it'd be too mean, but maybe future section for the show. This is going to bridge on to something we wanted to talk about today, actually. Future section where the people who talk shit, we look on their Instagram, and then the next episode we talk about it because it's normally hilarious. They're normally like busted in the head. So yeah, clapping back. All right. What was it? Oh yeah, that's what we were going to talk about. What sort of things would you like us to cover on these lives? Because we were having a chat about it earlier, and we were thinking like we covered a lot of stuff, and it's kind of annoying that not much is happening in the tricking community now. Apart from like, there's new bangers being hit, but because there's no gatherings, there's not really any new stories or, there's just nothing too exciting, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just, it can get a little bit difficult because also we're pretty restricted with the things that we can do right now. So,
yeah.
Like, even just in our personal lives, like, just random bullshit that we have to deal with. But, that guy said,
what did he say?
You're still welcome to check out my page, though. My flips Insta is this. And he said, I do dumb bombs.
Dumb bombs.
And Nathan Cabrera said, dude, really self-advertised. Lol.
See, but I can respect that. I can respect that because I think I'm always self-advertising. And I don't think well, there might be something wrong with it. But part of it is, if you want to make something successful, then you do need to constantly be getting it out there. And you've got to not give a fuck if people are going to be like, you know, giving you shit about like advertising all the time, because that's kind of what you got to do. You do need to have the content to back it up. Like, I don't know. I tell people when they message me, like saying, how can they get more people to watch their tricks and stuff? I always tell them, like, focus on being good first. Like, focus on being good enough that people are going to want to share it. That when people see you, they'll be like, damn, this is sick, and want to tag their friends. I think if you focus on that first, rather than just trying to put out your, like, basic flips loads, then I think that's
I think there's definitely something to that too, because people love a good story. People love following their journey.
True.
And like, for example, the people that are following you, you're probably not, if in the earlier days of your tricking, you're not going to have all of the best trickers on the planet watching your shit. You're not going to have the most amount of people, but the people that are going to be following maybe of a similar level, maybe a little bit better, a little bit worse. And as you all progress, you all kind of have, I don't know, you have that common thread of being like, oh, you're working on this and I'm working on this. And then you all follow each other's journeys.
Yeah. So I guess building the story is quite good. Like if you kind of, you're showing like your journey to being really good rather than like trying to put something out and say it's good when it's like just backflips or.
Well, there's a really good example of that, of where when I discovered Aaron Hakala, when you showed me him for the first time, I could not fucking believe the progress that he was making in a year. And it made it all the more, it's not necessarily that it was more impressive, especially at the time, but it also
made you remember him.
Yeah, it made him a lot more memorable because I watched his video from that year and then Kojo was like, but bro, look at this. And we watched like 3 videos starting from his first video that he uploaded. He was just doing like backflips and falls and stuff like near a bench or on a bench or whatever. And then a year later, it was like an insane level up. And then a year after that, he was like perfect technique, perfect aesthetic. Everything was textbook clean, really high level shit. And then the year after that, he was doing crazy like high level double flips on a teeter board. And it just meant that like he covered all angles with his training, and it was a really interesting.
It's cool to see what's possible like that. And let us know in the comments what you guys think if you're watching live or on YouTube. Like, how important do you think? How important do you find a tricker's story to their tricks? Because for me, like the ones I remember way more are people who have like kind of an interesting story around their training. Like Johan's always my go-to example because he did a lot of his training not in a gym. Like a lot of wet grass training, shitty weather in Finland, training on wooden floors, and he got like super good. Yeah, and he got so good. So I've always found stories like that. I don't know, I'm more into it and more interested than, even though I'm impressed, compared to like Shosei, which is also it's a different type of interesting story. But someone else who's really good, but just has a community of really good trickers around them, has amazing gym access all of the time, started really, really young, you know, has everything in there, like all of everything going their way. Like Jacob Pinto or something, they have their own gym and personal trainer, all of that. Like, it's still cool to see the end result, but I find it more interesting when it's someone who's kind of done it against the odds, you know?
Well, everybody loves an underdog. And
and
the thing is, like, also there's a certain level of relatability. Like, there's a much higher percentage of people that are going to be coming from situations where even if they may not have had it as bad as the true underdog, like someone who's stuck out
in the desert,
in the middle of nowhere with like 100 degrees every day, like not able to train anywhere, but still overcoming that and then getting to the big competition and winning big. But like, people aren't going to have it quite as bad as that, but they're going to feel as though they have a lot more to relate to because they have to deal with any sort of trials and tribulations. So I think it's a lot easier for people to connect with that kind of shit, and I enjoy that. I love an underdog story. I love it. Like Johan just out in the woods and out on the slippery, wet asphalt, just hammering his body until he gets his flips. It's great.
Yeah, I don't know how he managed it, to be honest. Like,
it's so
his
impressive.
progression, I remember it impressed me so much how he went from, like, it doesn't seem as crazy at the time now because obviously loads of the Japanese trickers have kind of followed in people like him and Mike Guthrie's footsteps. But at the time, Johan progressed from landing his first ever triple fall to doing triple fall swing double cork in less than 6 months. And that's insane. Like, now, I get now that kids do that, but at the time, that was so insane.
Yeah. Lewis Ringrose said, I'm pretty sure that DD guy, Didi Alui, I think his name is, who won Red Bull Out of Motion, started without a gym. Bro, have you seen that mini documentary they made about him?
Yes, he's so good.
Sick.
See, you get more invested. So it makes for a more interesting story. So anyone who's watching this and who doesn't have the best like training situation, I think you can kind of use that as fuel to push you through because it does make for a more interesting story. You learn a lot from it. Like, I've definitely learned a lot more from the hardships than when things are going easy. Like when things are just working out. You know? So you do benefit in some ways that, I don't know. There's definitely people who have been so lucky that they've missed out on a lot of growth from tricking. Like, they've gotten really good, but because it was so easy for them, then they didn't really get... Because tricking, I see it as a tool for, like, improving yourself, really. It's one of the main things. For, like, strengthening your mindset, overcoming obstacles. And some people who've kind of been, like, had it really easy, then they haven't had those gains. Like, it hasn't transferred over to other areas of their life. And I think it's because of that. If it's too easy, you don't benefit quite as much. You know what I mean?
That's true, but you can have those wake-up calls, though. Even if you've had everything great, and even if everything's been super easy for you in terms of, like, circumstances, because there's no taking away from the fact that you still have the same, like, milestones that you have to reach as everybody else. You still have to get the same tricks. Well, not the same tricks, but you know what I'm saying.
I
But
think
like,
there
if you
is
have
taken away from it.
huh?
I think there is. I think like tricking's not. It's not like hard work. It's just the things that make it hard work are the things you have to do to structure your life in a way where you can trick all the time. The reason why tricking, I found tricking hard work in the past is because I had to cycle 10 miles to gym, 10 miles back from gym. I had to work a full-time job to pay rent. And then I started at 16, so I had to be stretching all the time to build flexibility. If you start as a kid, you have your own gym, you don't have to work, you have everything sorted for you, and all you have to do is just trick, then it wouldn't be that hard. It wouldn't be that
Okay,
hard,
well
would it? That's not the hard bit.
okay. Well, all I was saying was, it's just on the surface level, you still have to get the same tricks as the other people. Your situation may just be different. But I don't know. I've completely forgot what my point was now. You threw me off. But
well, it's still a challenge. Now, I'd agree that it's still a challenge. But when you think about it, and wouldn't you agree, like, the hardest parts of tricking haven't been, like, going to session and doing tricks. That's the fun bit. That's the easiest bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That's not what I was saying though. I've completely forgotten where I was going with my point though. Yeah, I don't know, you threw me off. But now it's just one of those things with tricks, like it oh yeah, no, the wake up calls. Okay, sorry, yeah, you can still get a wake up call. So because you're never, even if you've got the best like, I don't know, team working on your body after you get like a major injury, you still have pretty much the same amount of time as everybody else if you need major surgery. So you've got that period where it's taken away from you, and you've got that mental battle. And if anything, at that point, it's harder for you mentally because you've not had to deal with any of the other trials and tribulations. So that can kind of balance it out. And for anybody who's going to get to a really, really high level, the chance of you not getting a major injury is so small. And hopefully, as things progress with the sport, it will get bigger and bigger. So the chances of you not getting an injury are a lot higher, because the knowledge and the understanding of what you should and shouldn't be doing in order to train
more
safely.
Conditioning stuff. When there's more people like who are dedicated to kind of I don't know, like tricking specific conditioning, because that would be really cool. Like there's a lot of people who do things to benefit tricking. Hold on, there's vacuuming going on. Let me close the door. I've got a point though.
Also, you're pretty blurry as well.
I'm what? I'm blurry.
Are you on the Wi-Fi again?
No, I'm on my data. I don't know why it's not working that good. It looks fine for me, but like yours looks fine. But yeah, what I was gonna say is, imagine someone who's like a dedicated personal trainer. Like they took it really seriously, or a personal trainer / physiotherapist, like someone who's really skilled but super into tricking, and then they made it their goal to kind of work on like conditioning specifically for tricking, and they could provide a load of really useful information for that, and like figure out new exercises and all of that. That'd be really cool, and I feel like that will happen in the future. That person will come along probably.
Yeah, I don't know. There's always hope for it in the next generation. You know what I mean? Because the next generation, if they're going through the education process or whatever, and they get into becoming like a higher level physio, and then they really dedicate their knowledge and time and experience in the education side of it to the applicable side of tricking, they can make moves and they can really do amazing things for the overall population of the sport.
Well, you got a really interesting question here from Nathan. Are there any top level trickers who's never been majorly injured? And I think the answer to that, the quick answer, is the kids. Like most kids, most 15 and under or 16 and under haven't been majorly injured, because you're just so much more flexible and you recover so fast from everything when you're a kid, and you weigh lighter as well. Your joints are just less worn down. I don't know. You've got a lot of things working in your favor. And I think a lot of the kids who are really good haven't had like a major injury yet.
Ilya? Oh, no. Ilya fucked himself, didn't he? He had ankle, wasn't it? Yeah, wasn't it his ankle?
Oh, he did hurt his ankle.
I remember seeing a picture of him on a hospital bed or something for his ankle or knee or something.
Alexander
Yeah,
hasn't been injured much. I know he's had some, but he hasn't.
he hasn't
Because when
had
I
he hasn't
remember
had
when I
the he
interviewed
hasn't had the type of injury that puts him out for a year.
just the smaller niggling ones and stuff.
Yeah,
I remember he had one for like a couple of months, but yeah,
yeah.
he hasn't had like the
Oh,
big
yo,
like surgery one or anything.
when we were at Holy Land one of the years, he scared me so much, so fucking much. Someone said he broke his ankle.
When I interviewed him and asked him about his worst injury, and he told me about a time when he was injured for like, well, he thought it was months at first, and then when we got further into it, it turned out to be 6 weeks. He didn't mention ever breaking his ankle. We met him in 2012, and I know he hasn't broken his ankle since then.
Yeah,
So I don't know when. He might be talking about someone else as well. I forget there is the lag. He might be
yeah.
talking about Ilya. I don't know. I don't think
Oh yeah,
Alexander broke his
yeah.
ankle.
He might be talking about it. But anyway,
Yeah, it might be
when
that.
when when we were at Holy Land, Alexander, I don't know what was going on with him. I think he just hadn't been tricking that much, like just prior to the gathering, and he had insane amounts of power, but no control. Like he was still the Alexander that we know, and it was like, you know, he'd be doing his normal combos and stuff, but he absolutely stacked it like 4 times on separate occasions, completely different combos, and it was just because like he tried to do a double B at the end of a combo, and he came out so wrong and so soon that he landed and twisted his whole body up. He did like that Angel of Death type shit that
Oh
happened to
no.
that football player. Dude, it was fucking nuts. I kept saying to him, I was like, dude, you need to stop. You're gonna fucking kill yourself.
Those sessions, though, they happen. You
I know
used to
when
be always
everything's going
landing
wrong.
crazy. We've both gotten away with a lot more than we should have over the years, to be fair. I think every
100%.
tricker has, you know?
I had one recently. The one on the grass when I missed my right leg off the side swipe.
Oh, well, I thought you were going to mention your Webster off a wall. Because Omid did
Oh
a Webster off a wall and
no.
flipped, and he landed in full splits from a height.
Oh my god.
Oh,
Oh fucking hell.
Lewis said when he tried Shuriken, didn't he break it? No, he didn't break it then. He just like sprained it, which is
That is kind
crazy.
of crazy
It
though.
looked
How he
bad, but
did
it
it.
wasn't that bad. He
Yeah.
was fine after not that long. It wasn't broken.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah,
These bodies, man. The body's so strange. It seems so fragile, but then on other occasions it can take like rolling down the edge of a cliff and hitting tons of rocks and shit, and it's
yeah.
absolutely fine, and you just get away with a couple of scrapes. It's so
It's
mad.
random. There's just so many factors involved. Like I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of injuries really depends on. It can really depend on how warmed up your body is. Like if you're really warmed up, then you could take like
Yeah.
the same fall and be fine as another. And if you were colder, then it would like snap your ligament or whatever.
Yeah. I hate the winter in the UK, man. I feel like
Mm.
I've got I had a back problem a few years ago, and I got into the car and I was absolutely fine. And then I'm not joking. I'm not exaggerating. By the time I got to the session, I was injured. I'm not even joking. My back, my back was jacked the fuck up, and I was like, maybe I just need to stretch it out a little bit. And I started warming up at the session. I was driving on the way to the session, and
Mm.
warmed up and shit. And I did like one trick. I think I did scoop pop flash, and I was like, okay, I'm injured now. And it just fucked my back for like a month and a half. And I was like, how has this happened? I was killing shit before this, and now my back's injured just from driving.
Well,
Yeah, it was bad.
we had I'm going back because we had an interesting injury question earlier on actually. Um, where is it?
I'm gonna have a look through my camera roll, see if there's anything interesting going on. Oh yeah, there's this really beautiful pigeon. Oh, Kojo's lagged out. Of course he has. But isn't that a beautiful pigeon? How lovely is that? Oh, I can zoom in on me. See. Oh Oh yeah, I did my first 20 mile cycle. Yeah. Oh, he's gone. He's gone completely. Oh, it's just me bragging about my accomplishments now. What else is going on? I don't know. I'm looking. Oh yeah, there's this combo. My first session back at the gym. I was doing combos to triple full. Didn't want to go too mental. Again, this is me just bragging about my accomplishments. Oh, here he is. He's back. He's back a rack. Oh, come on, man. I can't click the thing.
Damn, delicious. I'm
Oh,
back.
there he is.
I figured out what's going on.
You connect to the Wi-Fi?
It's because I'm tethered on my laptop and I'm uploading a massive video. Forgot about that.
Oh, okay.
That's what's going on.
Yeah.
But I paused it, so it should be all right.
All right, sick. Well,
Yeah.
Nathan, you should go on Kojo's Trick Lab.
Learn from the mid.
Heard it here first. We don't talk about Kojo's Trick Lab enough on this show.
Yeah, never mention it. Not once. All right, what I was going to say before to that, are you 100% recovered from injuries? I think when you have a certain level of injury, then you don't really recover 100%. You can kind of recover around stuff though. Like I know, weirdly, it's like there's areas where I'm injured, but also stronger than ever, just because of building everything up around it and like just from the rehab, like strengthening all the surrounding muscles and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know. Because from my experience, when it comes to injuries and stuff, if you were to allow yourself to recover 100% from every single little injury that you have, because it's a balancing act, you would never get anywhere with your tricks. Because the only way, from my experience, the only way to really fully 100% recover is when you take time off and just focus on conditioning and you don't do any tricks and just stretch. And then when you do that, your tricks take a massive step back. So you have to ease yourself back into tricks. And then if for whatever reason, you can be training safely or whatever, but you end up straining a muscle just because you're trying really hard with your flips, you're never going to get anywhere.
I think this is one of those person-to-person things. I think there's just so many factors involved. Some people probably could get like 100%. I feel like after a certain point, when you've had a certain amount of major injuries or whatever, then I don't know, like you can't just become a child again.
Yeah.
You can do the best with what you got, you know? Like apart from my back, which is a bit messed up at the moment, which I'm still trying to recover from, then I'd say that I'm not injured, but compared to lots of people would consider it injured because my ankle, like the way Zen lands loads of his tricks all the time, that'd be my ankle done for months. If I did one of his landings like that, like I can't land short on things or I'm done. But I don't consider that injured because if I just don't land short on things, then I'm okay. So I just have to train in that kind of way. Like I judge everything that I go for, and I don't take chances like that. I can't afford to at this point.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just because a lot of it is luck, and a lot of it can just be based off of poor judgment when you were younger. Because that's what's happened with me. Like I've had an injury now for over 2 years that is always just kind of coming and going, and every time I think it's gone, I'll just have a normal session and I won't do anything mad. I'll just do some tricks and then the next day it's back. So it's like, and that all came about because I was kind of stupid with my training one time and I shouldn't have been training. And I was because I was excited at a gathering and now I'm paying the price. But it's like, I've learned from that. And so now I'm a lot more measured and I'm just doing everything I can to avoid that, and I train around it. Like I can still train enough, and I can just do my conditioning and stretching, and it keeps me alive.
I think that's the case with a lot of like good trickers that you wouldn't even realize. You'd think they're fine because of the level of things they're doing. Like Jordan just commented saying landing short messes up my hip more than anything, and he's always doing mad shit and like really hard shit, really bendy things. You'd think that his hips were completely fine. You'd think. but it's more that he's like good enough and has enough, like good enough technique to be able to do this stuff and not aggravate it. And I think that's something you just don't know earlier on. Like I didn't know that when I was like, how's no one injured?
Yeah.
When I was like younger, after I had my first injury, I was like, how is no one else like this? But actually they are. They're just training like smartly around things.
Well, the biggest shock for me was the first time I met Mike Guthrie. The first time I met him, we were all just sat around at High Gathering, and we were talking, and he was talking about how his hip, after he did, I think it was one of his first Gumby quad cork attempts years and years and years ago, and I think it was the one where he landed in like a genie position, and when he did it, it like cracked his hips open, and he just every single morning now he wakes up. Well, he was saying at the time, he wakes up and he was mad stiff, and if he didn't do his stretching, then he'd be like immobile for the majority of the day, and it would just all the time he would have to be working on his stretching and making sure that his hips were in a good enough position just to be able to trick, and he never felt like he was fine. And it's one of those things that, like, when watching Mike, especially at that time when he made Hi Oh My, you wouldn't look at that footage and think, oh, he's got any injuries at all. He was incredible. But
yeah, so mobile.
Yeah, it's just shit that you always have to kind of deal with.
Yeah. The legendary Camquat, Cameron Sharma, says, I feel like getting to 100% health really depends on your past. Like if you shattered your spine, getting to 100% might be rough. But if you didn't completely destroy yourself, I think there's always a chance to fix your imbalances and recover. Like, yeah, I agree that. I agree that.
Oh, you're good at speaking English.
I agree that much. No, I agree. I think, I think you can recover to a point where you can like move, like practice sports freely and not be limited, even if that might not be, you know, you might still have some kind of pain in some certain movements and in some certain places. I'm sure some people could. I don't know. There might be,
I think it does just depend.
It depends on
it
the
depends.
person, doesn't it?
There's too many variables. Depends on the person.
There
Depends
is.
on the injury. Depends on how
they move.
How they what they're doing to make their body right again. And Nathan said, "Damn, all this injury talk scares me," and that's good.
It should have been, because we weren't scared enough. We weren't scared enough of injuries, and it's always coming up now because it's a real thing. It's like you train in a stupid way, you think it's fine, and then you hurt yourself, and that's going on for like years. Like
it's always fine.
Is that forever then? Like
it's just always fine until it's not, and when you realize it's not, then you're like, oh,
too late.
Shit. It's like irreparable. Like I've done that thing now. Well, it's not that it's irreparable. It's just you can't take it back. And when you do realize that, that's the wake up call that I was talking about earlier on.
Yeah. Yuri
said some people don't ever get to 100% though, and that puts them at high risk of getting injured. He said strength and mobility wise, and that's true. Like if you don't even get to that place initially, if you don't get to like, I mean, you can never get to your best. I don't know.
I think it's just knowing your body. I think it's getting to a point where it's not dangerous because, I mean, with my tricking and recovering from injuries, then I'll start tricking with ankle stuff because I'm used to it more. Then I'd start tricking without it being 100%, but that's based off my own knowledge of my own body and my movements. So I won't do any tricks that are going to put it at risk. And when I've done that, like through my recovery process, I've never re-injured it from that because I'm just very, very careful. So I think it's just having that balance, like how healed are you? And then like, how hard are you going to go? And keeping it so you're going like softly enough that you're not actually putting yourself at risk, and understanding when you are in danger zone. Because sometimes you got to take like a little bit of risk, but you should recognize that you're doing that, you know?
Well, I bet there's some people that are watching this as well that are thinking like, well, surely you could just rest a little bit and then you're fine. And that is the case when you're younger. And also, I don't know if that's the case for everybody, but for most people, but for us, I know, it's really difficult to just not do your flips, because there's two sides to it. There's the effect that it has on your body and the way your body feels when you're not doing tricks. And then there's the mental side of it. When I'm not training, when I'm not doing tricks, I feel worse mentally, physically, everything. So it's almost like, it's like that kind of, that addict's need for a drug. You know what I mean?
You
Like, I
can't
need
let that
release.
control it though. You still got to be, but I think another thing to take into consideration that you just wouldn't know, like if you're in your first couple of years of training, you wouldn't really know. But healing, for example, with my own experience, healing my ankle, it's like my ankle can't just be a functioning, what a doctor would consider a healed working ankle. It needs to be stronger than that. If it's going to be able to take multiple flips on one leg on hard floors, blocking off it and rebounding into these like high tricks and landing on one leg again sometimes, it needs to be stronger than a working ankle. It needs to be exceptionally strong. So going from like destroying it to exceptionally strong, that's the big challenge. Getting it to the point where like your normal jogger would need it to be, that's not really the hard bit. It's getting it like way further beyond that, I think.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things I want to talk about here. So Cam said, I've been picking up other sports lately to keep active but not trick. And that's something that I've really, really been diving into. Because before, I never used to want to do anything that was physical. Even if I was trying to recover from an injury or whatever, unless it was lifting or something that was directly going to benefit my tricks, I didn't want to do it because it would affect tricks. So, because like, I can't, like, I started doing a little bit of skating a little while ago, and it was mad fun. It was super fun. But then I had to stop because I was like, this is ruining all my sessions. Like, I can't keep going to the session and just being in agony because of the skate session that I had 3 days ago. Like, it's not worth it. So I had to stop, and like, now I've been doing like more endurance-based things, like all cardio-based things on top of lifting and all that kind of shit. And it's really good to stop me from wanting to force myself into a session or being annoyed that I can't go and trick. I still get that kind of release of doing something that I'm proud of and like really physically exerting myself and pushing myself further than I thought I could. But I don't get the same, I don't know, stress that I do with tricking.
It's just lower danger levels.
Yeah, because like just doing a bit of cycling, it's not the same as trying to do Fei Long Swipe 9 Vanish Snappy.
Yeah. Well, like after this, I'm going for my going for a walk.
Kojo's been walking the earth.
I've been walking the earth. I've just been wandering around into the night.
That's so funny. I love it.
I don't know what else to do while I'm injured with my back as well. You just kind of go for a nice walk. Go to my swamp. Maybe I might take some pictures of my swamp.
Oh, go on.
Hang out.
You can share them in the next live.
Yeah, I'll share my swamp pictures in the next live. I've been taking some good ones, man.
Well, you showed me one the other day. It was lovely.
Yeah, right up your street. Yeah. Right up your street, mate.
Oh, okay. There's a comment here. It says, doesn't doing tricks make you stronger and act as conditioning? Yeah. This is something... It's such a weird one. The problem with tricks is every single thing is like a balancing act, because yes, it does make you stronger, but if you're doing tricks in the wrong way, then it's going to actually be worse for you. Like if you're forcing everything and you're 100% muscling everything, and you do that for an extended period of time, you're just going to wear your body away. And
that's true. If you have really bad technique, then it's not good conditioning, really.
And you also can't be doing that if you've got a small injury, because with correct technique, you're using the conservation of momentum that you built up from your setup into the trick, or you've honed the technique so that you can do it in the most efficient, lowest impact way you can, and you're doing everything a lot lighter than everything else, than like tricks that you find particularly hard. But if every trick that you do is just pure muscle and not very focused on technique, then you're going to end up making the injury worse. And it's like, when you're doing things with bad technique, I know for me in the earlier years, a lot of the time I wouldn't even know that I was doing things with bad technique. I'd just be like, well, I'm just not landing this. I just need to do it over and over again until I land it. I used to put so much more emphasis on that. Whereas now I'm like, let me see what I'm doing what's this small part of my arm doing?
Well,
That it shouldn't be.
you learn that over time, or if you coach, then you learn that straight away. And I think that's why, because we didn't quite. Well, I know I didn't catch on. You know, in the early days. Do you know how forms people, like sport karate people, were always so much better, and they always had like great technique and touchdown raises and stuff? I always thought they were so, like, I could never. I was like, why are they so good? I was like, oh, is it the martial art background thing? But it's not really. I mean, obviously that helps for like conditioning their hips and having good kick technique. But after teaching workshops at different martial arts schools, like I've seen, they don't actually. Their kick technique, like most kids, don't have good kick technique. They're even worse than me.
It's all relative though at the time.
No, but my point was, it's the coaching that made the huge difference.
Oh.
Like with Jacob Pinto and Michael Guthrie, for example. Like they both went to like workshops with the people who were the best at the time, who taught them things, and that can be huge. Like knowing the things I know now, if I'd had like 2 or 3 private lessons with me now, me as a 16-year-old, it would have saved like 2 or 3 years of my life. I would have progressed like that much faster. And that's in like 3 hours of teaching, because there's that many things that could have been explained really easily, really quickly, that I spent months and months doing completely wrong, learning bad technique, having to relearn the technique, trying to figure it out piece by piece, which me now could explain in like 15 minutes. And I would like that. That's why I taught plenty of people, even just teaching online. There's people who get moves that took me years in like a month. You know?
Yeah, I don't know. Because I definitely now, having been through what I've been through with the learning process of tricks, I kind of doubt my ability to learn things. Obviously, it would have helped a lot, but using that example, like you saying, it would have shaved all this time off of my training if I'd have just spent 3 sessions with 16-year-old me. I feel like I wouldn't have understood it. I feel like even when I was told things in my earlier years, I just didn't understand it, even if it was the best advice that I did.
You weren't given the best advice, though. When were you ever given? Like, I think of the advice I got, it was from people who could barely do like cork. So yeah, if you can land cork, then you're probably gonna have some tips to help someone else land it. But it wasn't like, it's not good. It's not like much help.
Well, the best advice at the time, and like, I guess maybe it's just because I hadn't really been exposed to like really, really good advice. Because now looking back, I'll look back at some of the things that people would have told me, and some of it was just straight bullshit. And I'm like, why would you even say that to me? That's counterproductive. Yeah. You're going to make the whole process for me way harder. We both experienced that quite a lot. But there were things where I'll look back now and think, you know what, that was actually a good piece of advice, but I didn't really know how to digest that information, even if it was given to me in a really simple format.
But that's part of the teaching. That's part of the teaching as well. True. There's one, for example, like, because we got a comment here that's really interesting, actually. You have to feel it to understand it sometimes. And this was always kind of exactly how I used to think. And I still do to some extent. But now I'm thinking, it's kind of true, and you kind of don't. I think if it's taught well enough, then you can get things like incredibly fast, because there's understanding what to do, but then if you have enough explanations of like how to do it, and you can link it to something the person already understands clearly, then they can learn it really fast. Like after my B-twist guide that I made, that went into had loads of different methods of learning it, went into a lot of depth, I had a load of people message me like the next day who had landed their B-twist, and they could do it better than I could do it after a year of practicing. And that was like the next day they'd got it. And I think if it can be explained like well enough, you know, then I think, I think maybe without really knowing how to feel it, you can learn stuff much faster. But at the same time, you do still need to understand it in your own head. So it is true. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm in between on that one.
Well, that's a weird one. Like, but that's kind of what I was getting at, though. like with my point. Like I feel like because I don't know, we've always had this kind of thing where, well, just people as a whole, like I could give someone a piece of advice and it could work wonders for them just because the way in which I've worded it in that moment has really resonated with them, and it like breaks through that barrier that they had of their understanding of a certain trick. But then I could give that same piece of advice in the exact same wording to another person and they just don't get it. They don't follow. They don't quite, it doesn't resonate with them in the same way. And then
It's just,
but it plants the seed, because that's something that used to happen with me and you a lot. You would say something to me because you've realized something, and I'd be like, yeah, no, I get it. But then I'd try and apply that to my training or to my trick, and I wouldn't get it at all. And then I'd mull it over and I'd think it through for like 2-3 weeks, and then it would really break down in my head, and then I'd get it, and I'd be like, okay, I thought I got it before, but now I get it. But then the same thing would happen for years to come, and it's like, I thought I got it before, and now I get it. And then, yeah, it's just like a repetitive motion of always thinking you get it until you realize you don't at all.
This is one of those. I think it's just recent events, basically. Recent events have led me to believe that you could learn things much faster without having the feel for it if it's explained clearly enough in a way that you understand. So if for every point there's like 5 different ways that you can explain it, one of them's probably going to connect with someone and they'll be like, oh, I see. Yeah. So my point is, maybe at the moment, then that information isn't there yet. But just from figuring out new ways of teaching things and then seeing the results of that, I think if it went way deeper, I'm kind of looking forward. I think like 10 years in the future, things could be explained in a way where pretty much everyone could understand, you know, like it can be taught well enough so you can watch this video and you now pretty much understand the move. Doesn't mean you can do it great. You still got practice, but you're probably going to get it pretty damn fast because you really understand it. Like, I believe that's possible. And this is recent. This is like the last couple of months have made me believe that that's possible, you know?
Well, I think that's based off of like the theory side of it. Because if you've got the theory down, let's say, for example, like if you look at like a maths equation or whatever, if you really understand the theory of it, then even though the question that you're given may be quite difficult, at least then you have enough knowledge to then work through it and be like, okay, this is how you get to the end result, which is the answer that you need. And in this case, it's the trick that you're trying to land. And once you're armed with that understanding, then you can really make, it might not be immediate for everybody, but then in a much shorter space of time after the fact, then you can get to that end result of landing the trick that you want. But there was a comment that Scarlett put, and she said, you don't know how it's supposed to feel until you can do it properly. And that is true to a certain extent. However, if you, let's say, for example, like, when you do a trick.
I covered this. This is something that I went into quite a lot in the video that I'm putting out today, actually. Like, you should know how it feels before you've even tried it, because you shouldn't really be trying to move from nothing. It should be based on something. Everything should be based on something. There are no new moves, really. It's always going to be some progression of something you can already do. Well, it should be, because that way you can connect all of your tricks together in your head, and you can practice. You can practice a trick for 3 years without ever doing that trick, because you know the link between that trick and a bunch of others, and you practiced all those other tricks. So now you can just do that one way better. And that's something you can definitely do. That's why people like Shosei can do a move that they've never done before, and they're great at it in one session, because they're linking it. He's not learning a new move. He's linking it to things he can already do. And so, yeah, I think you should already be able to imagine how a move feels just based off experience with other tricks.
Well, also just based off, like, when you try and do that, even if it's a brand new trick, like, let's say, for example, you can full, but you can't cork. Like, you've never done cork before. You've never even done it on a trampoline. You're trying it for the first time. When you do it and you do it right, it feels nice. Like, even down to its like purest, like most animalistic feeling of the movement, like, it feels nice because it flows well. It doesn't feel like loads of effort. And that's what you realize, that the less effort tricks feel and the more natural your body moves throughout those movements, the better you are at that trick. Because like for me, Kojo's even said this to me a few times in the past, like with me doing like any kind of swipe 9 or whatever, now it's the same as me doing something like a cork or whatever. Like it doesn't feel like any more impact because I've trained the landing and the understanding of those tricks. So it doesn't feel as awkward as it used to. And it's just because I've drilled it so much on tramp and on spring floor.
But it's my point was it's the understanding between those tricks. It's the understanding between the cork and the full that's the important bit. Knowing how to turn one trick into another one. Like Nick said, fulls fucked me up with corks. I kept trying to full rather than off axis. And that's just because if he had a really clear understanding of exactly what you change between a full and a cork, then it's like he already knows how to do a cork. What he doesn't know is the difference. Because if you know the difference, you can just insert that difference in and then you can do it. This is kind of, because when you think into it more, it's why you can do moves that you've never done before. There's moves that you haven't ever tried and I haven't ever tried, but we both know we could do them and we'd be able to do them straight away because we understand the link between those moves and other ones we can already do. And I think when it comes down to it, that's kind of the most important thing in tricking because you can't practice every move individually. There's too many moves. But if you can understand the link between all of them, every time you practice one variation, you're practicing all your variations.
Well, this is why Alex Hunter was a fucking he was a genius before his time. He was the first person I heard these two pieces of golden information from. The first one was everything's a raise. Now, it's a big joke, but it's also kind of serious. Like removing just raise as a trick, if you can take every trick that you do and turn it into another trick, as long as you have that first base trick, then you can do all the tricks. Like it may not be like an immediate thing, but if you can turn every single trick that you do into a raise, if you can figure out the connections between them, then you're gold. And then the other one is everything's easy. And that's something that's really stuck with me over the years because he was the first person that I'd heard who was really fucking good at tricks say everything's easy. And he was like, everything's easy for you, everything's easy for me. And it actually really helped my progression because going into tricks with that kind of mindset, it just helps because it gives you that extra 10% when you're going into the trick.
Yeah, because you know when you do it right, it should be. Pablo said, "Sucks when you can't raise." Like that could be any trick. Everything could be like a full.
This is why I said remove raise. It can be anything you want it to be.
The thing is, if it's like a raise is a good example. So if you understand all of the links, if you like, it's one thing knowing how to do a raise and a tornado kick, but if you can do a tornado kick and you can change its axis all the way from tornado kick into a raise, then that means if you can turn that tornado into a parafuso, you can turn it into a fei long, you can do it just as a shuriken without the round. If you can do all these variations and you know the link between that and a raise, you can instantly do them all in a raise. And then if you know how to make your cork feel like a raise, the second half of it, then you can move all of that tornado information straight over to your cork. You know how to cork D-leg now. You know how to shuriken. You know how to round. You know how to fei long. You just know how to do it if you get the links.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing.
What are you laughing at?
So there's some guy in the comments just going off, and I want to kick him.
The gay one.
Yeah, but at the same time, he's saying funny things. He just said, "I've got a sexy little swan neck."
That's quite funny.
Oh my god! But yeah, like these kind of this fucking, I can't speak. I keep looking at these comments.
Omid.
What?
Nathan said, "Wow, I've never thought about tricking in this way. Watch my newest video. I made a web. I made a web for it. It took me hours. It explains it in web form.
Web format.
It's all a web."
But you see, this is the shit that like this all started off from a comedy skit that Alex Hunter would do. He gives these like gems, and it's all a big joke, but what he's saying is well founded, and you have to like. This is why he's so important. He's like a wizard. He's like a sneaky wizard, and he just like curves his way into these conversations and says ridiculous things. And at the time, you're just laughing along. But then 6 months later, you're like, holy shit, that was some of the most profound advice I've ever been given in my life. But I wasn't paying attention because it was given to me by this insane character.
That's one of, I don't know, just the way he delivers information, like riding the wave in cork swings. That's something that stuck with me. Like, just, it makes you understand kind of how to keep the momentum going, because you're not going up doing a cork, landing, trying to cork. You're just riding it.
Alex Hunter, yeah. But also, copy and paste was a really good one for me. That changed the way that I did corks. Like, I went from being able to do, I mean, it was also because I was doing them every single session. But
I mean, I was going to say, with that way of relaying information, that's something I find really interesting, and I've really tried to do with my own teaching. And it's taken a while. I'm getting better at it. But I think you want to be able to deliver information in like as plain and simple English as possible. Like, the clearer you can make something, the easier you can explain it, the better, really. Because in the past, like, I've seen plenty of tutorials where it can feel more like the person's just trying to show what they know. Like, that's what I've always tried to avoid. You want to avoid showing. The job isn't to show what you know. The job is to help the person understand what they need to understand. You know, so like hone in on the main points. You could explain, if explaining in more detail doesn't help, then don't do it.
Yeah.
Like, try and just explain clearer. That's what I try and go for. I know I do go into more detail with the long ones, but I try and make it as clear and plain English as possible. And I think that's something that's really important. And yeah, Alex Hunter was one of the people who made me think about that. Yeah.
There's a couple of things. I'm just reading these comments, but yeah, I think that's something that's taken me a while to really kind of get tuned into, like not over explaining. Like, I'm always cutting myself off, because it's like I'm always about to give like way too much information. I'm just like, just do that, just do that, because I will just keep going otherwise. But one thing,
it's getting the most important bit. That's the key. Like, trying to find what's most important and focus on that. Because if you give them like 10 pieces of advice, then they might focus on the ones that aren't very important. You know, they might be trying to point their toes when they're not pushing their hips forwards, and that's going to be a problem.
One thing I really like to do, well, one thing that I've found is actually really, really helpful when I'm teaching people, is if someone that I'm teaching thinks I'm really good at tricks, then there's a lot of like, I've had a lot of people say to me in the past, well, yeah, well, of course you can do it, or whatever. Like, if it's just like someone at a gathering or whatever, I always try and like remove that barrier of me being anybody who's any good, or there being anything special about me. Because it's like, I'm just some dickhead from Dudley who like doing flips. Yeah. So I want to remove any of that kind of air of me being better than anybody else, because whenever I've done that in the past, and I speak to people in like a really like, listen, I just worked really hard, and this is what I've discovered. It helps with their mentality, because once you break down their mentality to the point where they really believe they can do this shit, it's so much easier.
No, I agree 100%. Like, half of the battle with teaching someone a move is convincing them that it's not that hard and it's something they can do. Like, I make that pretty big point of any video I make, and in the guidance, even in my guidance for other people who make videos for me, then I try and get them to like encourage the person.
Peace. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe.